Hello. So, for this session, I want to talk about what I call the human radio effect. Um, the human body is designed like a radio. In fact, it is a radio. Um, your spinal column is the antenna. You have two major electromagnetic organs, one being the brain, the other being the heart. The heart is the largest electromagnetic organ in the body, able to produce waves that reach out of the body for several feet. This is your range of influence, at the very least. This is the range by which you have influence, is the extent that your heart reaches. And the healthier the heart, the larger the range, which means the greater effect on the world. Um, it was observed as a man was struck by lightning that as the bolt of electricity came to the person's body, another source of energy began to come out of that person's head. As you think, whatever you think about comes out of you. When you think from up here, power comes out. When you release and you think from your heart, power comes from there. Now, the key is to get them in sync with one another. But that's a separate topic altogether. Um, what I really want to emphasize in this session is the availability of change. That you have the power in yourself to change your circumstances. Should you find yourself in a circumstance that you don't like, you, as the radio, have the ability to change the station. If you're listening to the radio and it's something that you don't want to listen to, you have one of two options. You can either sit there and listen to it, hoping really that something plays that you actually want to listen to, or you can change the station to something that you actually want to listen to. For those who think like this, there is option 3, which is just to cut it off altogether, but it's still an option. But these are the same abilities that you have within yourself. Every human being has this. You don't need to be initiated or awakened or anything like that. It just is what it is. This is the way that you're structured. This is the way that you're built. You're designed in a way to communicate to creation. Everything in the universe is made of electromagnetism. So when you're releasing those electromagnetic waves, you're communicating to the universe around you, telling it how it should respond to you, how it should treat you. This is the principle of reaping and sowing seen from a different aspect. That which you put out, you should expect in greater you should expect in a greater return. A scientist, or several scientists, have done this experiment where they take a tuning fork and they tap the tuning fork and it releases its sound, and they'll put it next to a different tuning fork that's tuned to a different frequency. And when they tap the original one, nothing happens. Yet, they take another tuning fork that's the same frequency as the original, and when they tap the original, without them having to touch, the other one that bears the same frequency begins to vibrate also. This is how we go through the world. You are a radio, you are a tuning fork, you are constantly releasing a frequency. And whatever is on the same wavelength as that frequency is attracted to you. You can only encounter things that are like you. I found myself at different stages of my life unsatisfied with my circumstances, unsatisfied with my surroundings. Um, I believe it was said in a movie, I believe it was Burlesque, where when they asked her why she wanted to leave, she said it was because she looked around and there was no one's life that inspired her. And oftentimes this is true for many of us. This is true for a lot of us. Yet we stay. We surrender to our circumstance, which is the same as listening to a radio station that you don't want to listen to, hoping that something that you like comes across it. So I found myself at these different stages talking to God. I'm like, okay, what do I do? I'm unsatisfied with my circle, my immediate friends, the people who I'm fellowshipping with regularly around this time. I'm like, what do I do? I need better friends. I need better community. What do I do? And answer I got was change yourself. When you be better, better will come. If you want better friends, you have to be better. In that I had to change what I was so that I could begin to attract something better. And as I've progressed through life, and this is the same for everyone, who you were at the time matches the friend group, matches the family group, matches your close circle, the people you're fellowshipping with or communing with on a regular basis. It matches. That one of the things that I've always hated, even more so grown to hate, is the perspective that if people stop being your friend, it means that they were never your friend. They've always been envious of you, jealous of you, things like that. And in reality, some friends you can only sustain as long as you function on a certain station. As a radio, that is. Some people are only in a certain frequency. And when you leave that frequency, you by default leave them. And the manifestation of that may be many things. Y'all might have a big falling out, or y'all just might stop talking to each other without a word. And it all comes down to frequency. Only things that are alike can really fellowship together. Or as the Bible would say, can two walk together lest they agree? Everything in your life that you're experiencing at the current moment is on the same frequency as you. So I pose the question, if you find yourself in a circumstance, in a situation with surroundings that you don't like, how do you change it? I believe that you change your circumstances by changing yourself. What you do frequently becomes your frequency. Now, this is really the power of ritual. Ritual, routine, same thing. Ritual doesn't mean creepy things that you do in the dark when no one's around. It's not really what ritual is. Ritual is simply something you do often. Same as routine. It's something you regularly do. Whatever you do regularly is what you are. And if you want to change what you are, you need to change what you do. That changes your frequency, thus changing the message that you're sending to creation on a regular basis. You're deciding with your actions, right? If I'm practicing, I'll use myself as an example. When I was in a time period, there was a time period when I was healing a lot, where I was pursuing the supernatural. I was doing a lot of miracles. I was doing a lot of healings. At that time, I didn't go a week without seeing healings. In fact, I typically did a healing of some sort, at least sometimes every day, sometimes every other day. Because that's where I was in that stage. That's what I was doing frequently. So that at that time was my frequency. Everywhere I went, my discernment was tuned to spot out ailments, disease, and things of that nature. And that's what was constantly going through my head. I was scanning the crowd. Okay, that person has this issue. This person has that issue. I was out on the prowl looking for people to heal at that time. Eventually, that changed. Not because I lost the ability, but because my mandate really changed. What I was called to do in a different time period changed, so I put that on hold. I'm now moving into a time period of getting back into that, but I moved into a more revelatory state. This is something that I teach some of the people that I've had the opportunity to mentor a bit, is that whatever you're called to do, whatever you want to do, it has a lifestyle attached to it. Anything is possible. You can be an amazing person. You can be a horrible person. It's all possible. And it's the lifestyle that you live that determines that. That there was a certain regiment I had to stay on when I was pursuing divine healing, when I was pursuing miracle signs and wonders. There's a certain regimen I had to stay on. I was praying a whole lot more. I was fasting a whole lot more. I was spending a lot more time thinking about that, meditating on that. When I moved into a more revelatory state, I didn't have to do that anymore. The amount of prayer changed, but the amount of meditation increased. The amount of listening increased. My exercises of awareness increased. My lifestyle no longer matched that of a wonder worker or a healer, but that of a revelator. So that's just something I can share. Back when I was into fitness, doing martial arts years ago, there was a lifestyle. I'd work out for hours several hours, about 8 hours every day. 6 to 8 hours every day. I worked out nonstop. That was my frequency at the time, because that's what I was doing frequently. Same with whatever lifestyle change you're trying to make, there's a lifestyle that matches it. And you need to find out what that lifestyle is. Everyone has different needs. Everyone has different wants. Everyone is structured a bit differently. So what it may take for one person, it might take you something different. It might be easier for you or harder for you, or simply different. But at the very least, it's possible. When you change your frequency, or rather, when you change your ritual, when you change your routine, you'll begin to change your frequency. And when you change your frequency, you'll change your surroundings. You'll no longer attract what used to be attracted to you. You'll no longer repel, in some cases, things that used to be repelled by you. There's actually people that are assigned to your life that you won't encounter, that you won't be able to meet with, even though you sense a connection for whatever reason, you won't be able to connect with them at the frequency you're currently at. For some people, you might need to come down. For some people, you might need to come up. In some cases, you might be high up and you're waiting for them to come up. There's a match that needs to happen, because the rule is simple. You can only resonate with what resonates with you. If you're a person that's always experiencing chaos, conflict, destruction, there's always something happening around you, that's because it's you. You are a tuning fork, radiating that around. You're sowing that. Typically, and I mentioned this earlier, typically people think of reaping and sowing in terms of where they give their money, because that's the way that church kind of conditioned us. But in truth, this reaping and sowing has more to do with what you're releasing into creation. You change what you're releasing into creation, you change what you're getting back from creation. Because it's designed to listen to you. You are the radio, after all. The radio can't blame the songs that are playing if it doesn't like it. Sadly, that's what we were conditioned to do, is be upset about our circumstances, but not change ourselves to pick a different circumstance. And um, mind you, there are some situations that may require the collective consciousness of humanity to change overall. Some things may take, on a larger scale, it may take more people. That is true. Because let's just say the United States has a frequency. It has sown certain things, therefore it's reaping certain things. And you can't really change what it's reaping. You can't really change the harvest without changing what's being sown. And that takes some time. Everything that you're experiencing, for one, let's go back to radio analogies. Something that music does, people use it for this. This is what it's for, really. It sets the atmosphere, it sets the tone, it sets the mood for a room. If you're out at, let's just say, a dance, they play different music depending on the type of mood they want the crowd to be in. If they want people dancing real hard, they play fast, dance real hard type of music. If they want a slow romantic setting, they play slow romantic music. If they trying to get some fights started, they play some fight related music. There is a soundtrack to every situation. So similarly, you as the radio in creation, you as the thing that decides the station, you decide the song that plays, you decide the frequency that is released. You are entirely responsible for your immediate circle. Now, again, the manifestation of you changing that may look very different in that, let's say you don't like your circumstance and you change your frequency. Let's say you're in extreme poverty. You have a job. Let's just say you start to change your frequency. The environment that you're in will begin to reject you. It may turn into more chaos, more conflict, but that's because the environment that was comfortable with you at that frequency, you no longer resonate with. So then there begins the search of finding what you do resonate with. It takes sensitivity, it takes patience, it takes a certain level of awareness, intention. But in the end, you'll eventually find what matches the current you. You're not locked in, you're not imprisoned. That's part of a frequency. If you feel trapped, it's because either you're the little fish in a big pond that needs to grow up, or you're the big fish in the little pond that needs to move on. Either you're being suffocated by your environment or you're suffocating your environment. Or you could be right where you need to be. And again, a lifestyle matches the frequency. Because that's another thing. There's a maintenance to it. In the same way I had all those different regiments and those different stages of my life, if you find yourself in a place where you're actually comfortable, you kind of have to keep doing what you're doing in order to sustain it. That if you want more, it takes more. It takes different. If you want less, you want different, it takes different. They always told me that insanity, the definition of insanity, was doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I'm trying to convince you to not be insane. I want you to do something different, expecting a different result. Because you're that powerful. No matter what circumstance you find yourself in, you can affect yourself on an individual level. And to a certain degree, you can help those around you insofar as you're able to stay around them or they're able to stay around you. which isn't something you really have control over. Because when you're dealing with people, you're dealing with other radios. They're choosing a station, they're choosing a frequency, they're choosing a lifestyle. Should you no longer match that lifestyle, they may peacefully let you go. They might decide to join you, or they may become your enemy. Those aren't things you get to decide, but you have to learn to prioritize your own growth, your own development for the benefit of the world around you. When I was initially pursuing the supernatural, learning how to heal, learning how to prophesy, learning how to do all that stuff, my immediate circle heavily rejected me. I was still going to a Baptist church at that time. While my pastor at the time was somewhat supernatural, he's actually the first person I knew who had a powerful translation experience. Eventually, I'll have him on the inner so that he can share his story about being in outer space. But so my issues weren't coming from my pastor, like he moved in the supernatural. It came from a lot of the congregation at the time. People who I was getting along with up until I started to pursue something greater. I started to pursue healing. I started to pursue deliverance. I started to pursue the prophetic, just accessing the power of God. Many people who I was cool with started to not like me anymore. And I didn't do anything to them. I was actually still very quiet at that time. So I wasn't getting in trouble for the things I say like I do now. Not just yet. That started when I actually started getting results. Which, and I say this not just to share that part of my testimony, but for the end result is that a lot of the people who initially fought me while I was pursuing that area in that time of my life later got healed by me. I prayed for them. They got healed much later. The people who told me not to pursue that with God benefited from it much later. People are silly. So literally, don't let the reaction deter you from pursuing growth. Don't let the possibilities of who may stay and who may go be the deciding factor on should you change your frequency, should you elevate, should you level up. I'll be continuing this topic in several other videos. But I believe this is good for now. Like usual, links to all my stuff is in the description. The Patreon, $10 a month. You can access all my exclusive content, some of my teachings and trainings, things that, or even some things that are going to be on YouTube at some point. So you kind of gain access to some early content, as well as the links to my book, Fullness Guide to Sonship and Mysticism, as well as the link to the Discord server. Follow us on Instagram, Cave of M. Subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. This is it for this session. Y'all be blessed.